They watch you from telephone wires. They gather in groups that can only be described as a murder. They remember your face, hold grudges, and even bring gifts to people who feed them. They are crows. And despite what most people think, they might be the most intelligent animals you've never given enough credit to. Today, we're going deep into the world of corvids, why crows are so remarkably intelligent, what science has discovered about their minds, and why these black-feathered birds might deserve a lot more respect than they get. Before we talk about crow intelligence, we need to ask, what does intelligent even mean in the animal kingdom? Scientists look for a few key traits: the ability to solve novel problems, use of tools, long-term memory, self-awareness, and social reasoning. Basically, can an animal think beyond its instincts? For most of history, we assumed these abilities were exclusive to mammals, especially primates like chimps and bonobos. But over the last few decades, research has completely shattered that assumption. Crows, ravens, jays, and other corvids, a family of birds, have been found to match or even exceed primates in several cognitive tests. And that raises a fascinating question. How did a bird with a brain the size of a walnut end up this smart? For a long time, bird brain was an insult, and for good reason, or so we thought. Birds don't have a neocortex, the part of the mammalian brain responsible for complex thought, planning, and self-awareness. But here's where it gets interesting. In 2020, a landmark study published in Science discovered that crows have a densely packed region in their brain called the pallium, which works similarly to the mammalian neocortex, just built differently. Neurons in this region fire in patterns associated with conscious thought and sensory awareness. In other words, evolution found two completely separate paths to intelligence. Mammals developed a neocortex, birds developed something functionally equivalent, packed into a much smaller space, with neurons more densely wired together. Crows may actually have more neurons per cubic centimeter in key brain areas than many primates. It's not about size, it's about architecture. Think of it like this. A luxury sports car and a pickup truck can both go fast, but they achieve it through completely different engineering. That realization changed everything about how scientists study animal cognition. The New Caledonian crow, found on a remote island in the Pacific, is particularly remarkable. These birds craft tools out of leaves and twigs, cutting them, shaping them, even hooking the ends to fish out insects from deep inside tree bark. They don't just use whatever's lying around, they manufacture specific tools for specific jobs. In laboratory experiments, crows have been given multi-step puzzles, where they must first use one tool to reach a second tool, which then allows them to reach food. Most animals, including many primates, struggle with this. Crows solve it efficiently, and often on their first try. Even more astonishing, in one famous experiment, a crow named Betty, studied at Oxford University, spontaneously bent a straight piece of wire into a hook to retrieve food from a container. She had never seen this done. She invented the solution herself. That is not instinct. That is problem solving. That is creativity. Here's something that might make you a little uneasy. Crows remember human faces, and they hold grudges. In a now famous experiment at the University of Washington, researchers wore specific masks while trapping and handling crows. After the crows were released, any time a person wearing that same mask walked through the area, even years later, the crows would scold, dive bomb, and harass them. They taught other crows who had never encountered the masked researcher to do the same. The dangerous face was passed down through the social group, like a warning shared through culture. On the flip side, crows remember people who are kind to them. People who regularly feed crows sometimes receive gifts in return. Small shiny objects, buttons, pieces of jewelry. Researchers and enthusiasts have documented this behavior repeatedly. It's not random. It appears to be intentional reciprocation. A bird giving you a gift because you were nice to it. That's not just memory. That's social intelligence. That is creativity. Crows are deeply social animals. They live in complex family groups, cooperate in raising young, and have a surprisingly rich communication system. Crow calls are not random noise. Researchers have identified distinct vocalizations for different situations: alarm calls, food calls, rallying calls, and sounds used only in intimate family interactions. Some scientists believe crow communication may be far more nuanced than we currently understand. Crows also hold what look remarkably like funerals. When a crow dies, other crows in the area will gather around the body, sometimes dozens of them, staying silent or calling softly. Researchers believe this behavior serves a learning function. The gathered crows are assessing what killed their companion, updating their understanding of danger. Whether there is any emotional component to these gatherings is still debated, but it points to a level of social awareness that is, at minimum, extraordinary for a bird. Here's something that's hard to explain purely through survival instinct. Crows play. They've been filmed repeatedly sliding down snowy rooftops, going back up and sliding again for no apparent reason other than fun. They drop and catch objects midair. They tease other animals, seemingly for the entertainment of it. Play behavior in animals is generally associated with complex cognition. It requires imagination, risk assessment, and an ability to engage with the world beyond immediate needs. And then there's the mirror test. The mirror self-recognition test is one of the classic measures of self-awareness. Most animals see the reflection and think it's another animal. Humans, great apes, elephants, dolphins, and yes, some corvids respond differently. They investigate marks on their own bodies when shown in a mirror, suggesting they recognize themselves. Not all crow species pass this test conclusively, but the evidence is growing, and it puts them in extraordinarily rare cognitive company. Crows and humans have lived side by side for thousands of years, and the relationship has always been complicated. In many cultures, crows are symbols of death, bad omen, and darkness. Norse mythology gave Odin two ravens, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory, who flew across the world each day and reported back to him. In many indigenous traditions, the crow or raven is a trickster figure, clever, mischievous, never quite what it seems. It turns out the myths weren't far off. Today, crows thrive in cities around the world. They've adapted to human environments better than almost any other wild animal. They use traffic to crack open nuts, placing them in crosswalks for cars to run over, then waiting for the light to change to retrieve the food safely. They raid trash cans, track garbage truck schedules, and exploit every resource human civilization accidentally leaves for them. Some researchers believe that crows have co-evolved alongside humans, that our expansion actually shaped their intelligence, because the smartest crows were the ones that survived in human landscapes. In a strange way, we may have made them what they are, conclusively, but the evidence is growing, and it puts them in extraordinarily rare cognitive company. So the next time you see a crow, sitting on a fence, watching you from across a parking lot, or picking through the remnants of someone's lunch, take a moment. That bird is not just an animal acting on instinct. It has a map of your neighborhood in its head. It may know what you look like. It has a family. It has experienced loss. It has, in all likelihood, solved problems today that would take a human child several years to figure out. Intelligence is not a single ladder with humans at the top. It's a vast, sprawling landscape, full of forms and shapes we're only beginning to understand. And perched right there on a wire, in a tree, on a rooftop, is a small black bird that figured out its own path to brilliance.